Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Linux Diagnostics and Troubleshooting Exam EX342. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell when you do so you know when new content is available. A reminder that these videos are my practice sessions for the exam. My exam's about a week and a half or so away, so I'm going through all of the posted objectives from Red Hat and am trying to either explain the concept behind the objective or perform some exercises for whatever the objective is asking you to do. And at the end of the video, I'll do a little self-assessment, and hopefully I'll feel prepared for the objective. If not, I have a little bit of time to do some brushing up and fill in some knowledge gaps. That being said, these should not be considered tutorials or used as authoritative source or as an authoritative source of information. I'm still learning myself, but I hopefully will have the information accurate as I'm at this point in my exam preparation. I put these out on the internet in hopes of those that are also working on this exam might get some ideas of things that they can do to prepare based off of some of the stuff that I'm trying. But again, these should not be used as tutorials or considered authoritative information. So continuing with the diagnose and troubleshoot file systems part of objectives, we're going to look at recovering a misconfigured or broken LVM configuration. So let's go into, I still have that open from my last practice session. I think my lab server 5 is the one that I put another disk device on. So let's go into that one. Yeah, there's a dev VDB. Okay. So a couple of things about Logical Volume Manager, and I actually have some of this stuff configured on this server. Let me become root here. I can do the shorthand LVS. We see I have two logical volumes. I have one volume group, and there is one physical volume that's attached to this particular volume group. PVS doesn't really show that to you, but I could do PV display, and it should. Oh yeah, it does show the volume group. What am I thinking? Shouldn't have brain issues at only 7:58 in the evening. But anyway, I have my my config here for logical volume. By default, there are a couple of things that are configured with logical volume that's kind of like some fail-safe. And we have both logical volume archive and logical volume backup. These are basically your LVM configuration. And it's nice that this is automatically taken. I want to think anytime there's a change, an archive is taken of what the LVM configuration is before the change, and then a backup. I can't remember off the top of my head when the backup is created. Let's take a look at the lvm.conf. That might give us some idea of when this occurs. Scanning through here. There's a ton of stuff in here. All right, so let's do this. I'm going to grep for backup. Okay, so we can configure like when it happens. So let me less the lvm.conf again. Okay, so one thing that I want to do before I take the exam, I need to review exactly when backup versus archive is taken. It looks like we can do some configuration of those. I have a feeling that's probably not going to be on the exam as far as actually configuring LVM to take backups and archives and how many are taken. It's probably going to be or even as the objective says, a broken configuration, and you have to fix it. I do want to take a look at the lvmlocal.conf, see if there's anything special there. It's like much of the same. Okay, so if we wanted to see what is available for trying to recover LVM, there's a command VGCFG restore, I believe, and the volume group name. So I'm going to say rel. That's the name of the volume group. And no, we do not want to restore anything. Was it VGCF? Oh, it's restore-L, I believe, and the volume group. That's what I want. All right, so this shows you basically all of the backups that you have available within both that backup and archive directory, and it shows you when it was taken. The stuff that's here is basically what was made, when the VM was spun up. So there's nothing special there, but we can use these to fix a broken LVM configuration. So let's do this. So I have VDB. Let's make a couple of partitions out of this, and we'll make some LVMs out of those partitions. So partition 1, first sector, we're going to do plus 5 gigabytes. I think it's 8E00 for LVM, yeah. Then we'll make a second partition. We'll make this one 10 gigs. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah. I'll just delete that second partition and do it again. This is what I want to do, plus 10 gigs, 8E00 for LVM, and that looks good. So we have our 2 partitions. Let's make us a volume group. Or actually what we'll do, this is even better. So let's do pv create dev vdb1, pv create dev vdb2. We're going to make us a new volume group. Let's just call it test vg, and we'll make us a logical volume. I think it's -n. It's been a while since I've actually made an LVM from command line, which granted that's the only time I do it, but I'm working with templates and such versus doing all this stuff manually. But it's good to make sure you still know how to do it. So the name is going to be test LV. The size, we'll just do 50% of the free space, and I think just test VG is all I need for that. Yeah, test LV created, and we see our test LV there. I guess we'll stick with that. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. All right, so what can I do to make some changes and such? We'll put something at stake here. We'll make a file system. No, not dev mapper rel. This is going to be test vg test lv. Make that an XFS file system, and we'll mount it dev mapper test vg test lv. Mount that to test lv. There's our file system. Let us make us a little text file, which this example might not actually do exactly what I want. Okay, so, and if we go into Etsy LVM, we should have, there's an archive file there of the test VG, and there should be backup file as well. So if we were to run our vg-cfg restore-l for this time the test VG group, we see that we have created before executing this. We have our configuration. If we want to manually take a backup, we could do vgcf backup. I believe we would give it the VG name, so test VG. I think that's what I want. I was expecting to have to give that a file. All right, let's do vfc restore-l. Okay, so it replaced the backup that was there. Let's take a look at VG. So I thought we can tell it where to put this. All right, so default installation. Okay, yeah, -f. And I could see that. You would make the backup and then put that backup file somewhere for safekeeping. The one thing to keep in mind is this is not actually backing up data. It's just backing up the actual configuration for LVM. So now what we're going to do, let's say that we have some tasks that we need to resize the volume group. And so let's say that we do this. We'll do LV resize, and we'll use dev mapper. Actually, we'll do dev test VG test LV. And what we're going to do is make a mistake and not use plus or minus, but we're going to resize it to 5 megabytes. And we are going to ignore this warning of, do we really want to reduce this? And we're going to say yes, and we have successfully reduced it. Now, let's just see what happens if we try to, All right, so can we actually read this? Probably so, because that little text file, reducing that by that file size is probably not going to make that big of a deal. Of course, you would never want to actually do this. Nah, I won't deal with that. You can't shrink XFS file systems, so this will be kind of a curious experiment. So now that the logical volume is only 8 megabytes large, well, this is one of the things, unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of time to do this kind of thing because my exam's pretty close, but you can learn a lot from doing little experiments like this. Obviously, you would not, what I just did, you would not do in production, but if you're ever curious, how would this look if it broke? You can do little things such as this. So, this is terrible. We have broken LVM, and on the exam, we have to recover it. So what you can do is that VGCFG restore -L to see what's available for test VG. And we see that there was archive file taken right before we did this, silly nonsense here. So we can grab that file name. And we also had the, the backup. Yeah, it took that, after executing. So yeah, we wouldn't want to use that. We'll use the archive. So what we can do is VGCFG restore, and the dash file for this. Is it? All right, let's do dash help. I'm thinking of like header dump file for Lux, because that's one of the next things that we'll deal with this here. There's dash file. Am I just not reading? Well, anyway, VGCFG restore. We'll do the test VG file and the name of this. And it's going to ask us, are we sure? Because if, in this, I guess I could deactivate the LV, but we're going to go ahead and say yes. Then we're going to actually deactivate and reactivate the volume group. I guess I could test this with already deactivating the volume group. So LV change, activate no, and do dev test VG test LV. Yep, that would make sense. So let's unmount that. Might have actually caused more problems than I have solved. And we'll activate this LVS. We see that's now back to 2.5 gigs rather than 8 megabytes. Let's see if we can actually mount the file system. Dev mapper, and then mount test LV. Can we cat our file? Yay, we can cat the file. So that would be, basically recovering an LVM configuration. So assessment-wise, am I ready to do this on the exam? I think so, because that's a fairly straightforward thing. Obviously, I've forgot some syntax stuff, but that's when we have our offline documentation. And it's good to use that on the exam. What you don't want is to where you have to look up every single little thing, but like a quick reference won't take, too much time. I do want to take some time to read a little bit more on LVM configuration to know the intervals of, I know the archive is taken basically right before you do, or when you do your command, it makes a copy of the LVM config and then does the command. But back up, I want to understand better exactly when that happens. It looks like it happens right after you do something, which isn't useless. That can be useful for future stuff. But in case we have to actually configure that, which I don't think we will, I would like to, just for my own knowledge, no. But I think for this, I would consider this a pass for the exam. So if you found the video useful at all, make sure you do click like. I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when new content is available. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you the next time.